In our previous videos, we met the mighty noble spirits, the warriors and protectors of the Sylvaneth, the forest folk who spread the power of life throughout the realms, and the outcasts, the dark harbingers of nature's wrath. Today we're going to do a few things. We're going to explore the free spirits. These are the sons of Durthu, the Kurnoth hunters. We're also going to deep dive into who Kurnoth is, and how he kind of fits into Sylvaneth. Now, these units individually don't have a whole lot of lore at all, but they're very cool additions to the army. So we'll start off with the Spirits of Durthu. This is a unit that kind of stumps some of the Warhammer Fantasy Battle players who are turning to AOS. See, in the world that was, Durthu was one of the most ancient treemen, a character, one of a kind, named Dude, what we would call now a Tree Lord. And at several events, the rise of chaos, the sundering of the elven nations, etc., broke his mind, and he became an engine of destruction and rage. Of course, I'm massively paraphrasing his long lore. If you are interested in him as a character in the old world, go check out the Warhammer Fantasy Battles wiki. This kind of broken-mindedness is much like we talked about with Troika, but less coherent, more like actual insanity versus a wide band of emotions. However, he was still regarded in that time as a loyal servant to the woods and the wood elves. Now we're going to fast forward through the old world to now. Durthu is no longer a character. The name Sons of Durthu refers to a large collection of special tree lords that all came from a particular soul pod patch. They are a close-knit brotherhood, instinctively bonded at formation with one another. And they have a few distinctions from other tree lords. They have been purposefully designed and bred for warfare, not the kind of direct governing leadership and wisdom that a tree lord bestows to his kind of subordinates. They don't lead households. Collectively, they function as Alarielle's personal bodyguard and her advisors. So they are important to leadership, but not in a direct take command of a particular army kind of way. This entourage defends and informs the Everqueen. It's important to remember that gods are not omnipresent. They can't be everywhere at once. So having competent advisors, counselors, people who can go out and share the message that orders the battle plans is very important. They also carry Alarielle's authority wherever they go, and that it kind of extends her ability to command the Sylvaneth even beyond the Spirit Song. She can lend someone, in this case a son of Durthu, to go be her presence on the battlefield if she can't go there personally. And the battle tome really drives home that these are not yes men. They don't just agree with Alarielle all the time. They often disagree with her, and at times it causes a lot of friction. There's even a time mentioned where she got so ticked during the Age of Chaos with the advice that they were giving her and how they were contradicting her, she sent them all away before she ran to Athelweird. Now, as Sylvaneth, they are kind of forced to do what she says, so they kind of obliged and hid all among Ghyran for hundreds of years while chaos romped. Upon being remade by the Stormcast Eternals, Alarielle's first duty was summoning her council back to herself. She needed them. She realized the camaraderie aspect of where she was planted kind of gave her this instinctual idea: I need advisors, I need guidance, we need to make this war happen. And it's taking a long time, but the Sons of Durthu slowly trickle in from far away. They were lost to time in hibernation, and so they're kind of one by one coming back to her. So to briefly summarize, they're a band of Tree Lord brothers bred specifically for war, and they act as Alarielle's personal bodyguard and her military advisors, trickling in from exile. And now we're going to dive into Kurnoth Hunters. This unit is somewhat of a mystery. The Sylvaneth have a long history, almost as old as the realms, but like the Outcast, the Kurnoth Hunters are a more recent addition. In fact, they've only come around since Alarielle's rebirth, when she took a weapon called the Spear of Kurnoth into battle. So we're going to pause right there on Kurnoth Hunters and go on a brief detour and talk about Kurnoth. It's important to note that there are other gods besides the big ones. The Pantheon, meaning literally all the gods, not just the good guy alliance of what I usually call the Pantheon, but all of them up there is massive. There's tons of these guys. And Kurnoth is the god of the hunt, representing martial prowess, guile and cunning, a powerful reverence for life, and kind of the embodiment of nature's wildness and hunger. If you will, it's almost a heavy Native American tone, where there's like hunting is kind of a reverent act, not a sport. But you fight well, you give the beast a noble death, you take what you need to survive, and you give thanks. It's not really a trophy thing necessarily. That's likely why he fits more in Ghyran than he does in, say, Gur. Now, at the top of this series, I incorrectly stated that Alarielle was the sole deity of the Sylvaneth. I should have said that she was the sole creator. That part is confirmed by the Battle Tome that she created all the Sylvaneth. However, since their spawning, they do often offer little worships to various other gods. That being said, all examples I can find has them utterly devoted to Alariel, while also giving some reference to Kurnoth. He's always like a secondary, almost like an add-on worship to Alariel. I didn't see any examples of units and armies that focused solely on Kurnoth. Again, they all hear the spirit song of Alariel and instinctually react to it, with the exception of the outcasts. So Kurnoth is the god of the hunt, closely tied to Ghyran. And we haven't seen a whole lot of him other than kind of his paragraph and a half of information here. But we know that some Sylvaneth offer worship to him in addition to Alariel. Now I tell you all of that to tell you about Kurnoth hunters. Kinda needed to because it's kind of in their name. As stated, they only appeared when Alariel took the Spear of Kurnoth. That's the most emphasis this book directly makes between Kurnoth the god and the Kurnoth hunters. It doesn't actually say that he commands his servants. It's not like all the Kurnoth hunters owe total allegiance to Kurnoth. The Battle Tome is very clear in that the Kurnoth hunters can be hard to understand. Because in one hand it says that they are utterly devoted to Alariel. They hear the spirit song reverberate in them extremely powerfully. Their speed and agility is attributed to some kind of magic from Alariel, and even says, in quotes, they venerate their living goddess and devote themselves utterly to her will, end quote. However, on the other hand, they also worship Kurnoth, more open about their polytheism than any other Sylvaneth, to the point where some don't trust them. And their appearance surrounding Alariel grabbing the Spear of Kurnoth is obviously important. It's hit on multiple times, but not really dove into. Functionally, they act as scouts and executioners of Alariel and the Sylvaneth. They move faster and more agile than other trees, and they wield a heavier arsenal than the Dryads and the Tree Revenants. They are often considered the instruments of Kurnoth's wrath, hence the names of their weapons are very relevant. And they can be just as wild and deadly as the outcasts, but they still have discipline. They can still follow orders. These are killers, not just a mob of psychopaths. One of them even has a special place in the Royal Moot. This is like the highest council of war, if you will. The person who, if Alariel plants down, becomes physical and speaks to her people, it's going to be her kind of royal council who then disseminates that information across the entire race. The Kurnoth hunter that is representative of all the Kurnoth hunters there is called the Hunt Master of Kurnoth. And his role, as the Battle Tome clearly says, is very hard to explain. He is somehow a captain of the Kurnoth hunters, a priest of Kurnoth, and Alariel's spy master. He is veiled in mystery and misdirection. At any of these royal councils, a lone Kurnoth hunter will attend, likely a different one from the one who showed up to the last giant council. And it could be the truth, maybe there's just a new hunt master and they're just not told about it, or the idea is there's a spirit of Kurnoth that possesses a Kurnoth hunter to attend, and only Alariel knows. All they know as the Grand War Council, the highest echelon of leadership, is that some random Kurnoth hunter shows up and says, "I'm the hunt master," and watches and listens in on everything they say. Regardless, he has total authority over all Kurnoth hunters. He coordinates them in secret to the point where Alariel only knows what's going on. And this kind of secrecy, this veiled mystery, has really ticked off some of the other leadership in the Moot. These are the Tree Lord Ancients, things like that, who have been governing Sylvaneth for ages. There are simple reasoning, and I get it, is that if you don't trust us, who do you trust? We've been your children, your loyal servants, since time immemorial, right? So why the secrecy? Why are you spying on us? Why have someone that you don't explain, or this entire second army of Kurnoth hunters out there that we're not allowed to know what they're doing? And so why are these units cool? I always like to end on these kinds of notes, and frankly, this section is all over the place. I assume they grouped them together as free spirits because the only thing cohesive about the Sons of Durthu with the Kurnoth Hunters is they all lack kind of a traditional organizational structure like the other classes, like the Noble Spirits and the Forest Folk, that kind of thing. Because again, Durthus have nothing to do with the Kurnoth Hunters, but they're in the same section. So my take is that it's just, they had these units who didn't really fit in anywhere else, and they're like, well, you're all kind of organized weird, so we'll lump you together and present you as this. So we'll start with the easy one, the Sons of Durthu. Personally, I am really into entourages. I like when you have your big leader, and they have this kind of council around them that helps them out and fights and does all kinds of unique things in the battlefield. And this was an unexpected background change that paints them as her guards and her kind of team of advisors. I really wanted a battalion that was just like Alariel and 5 of these guys. there's a lot of cool story possibilities here. Like, what kind of advice, let's say you build a Son of Durthu model, right? What kind of advice does your Son of Durthu give to Alariel? Is he aggressive? Does he want to keep attacking? Is he more defensive? No, Alariel, we need to not do that. We need to pull back, gather our strength, and kind of be more conservative when it comes to the war effort. How did they hide and survive the Age of Chaos after Alariel dismissed them? What was their reaction to hearing the spirit song that drew them in again? You know, what part of Ghyran did they hide, and that kind of stuff. Their ability to act as the will of Alariel gives them a reason to be anywhere, to lead anyone. And that kind of flexibility narratively is really, really awesome and allows you to add a ton of character to your army. Alright, diving into the Kurnoth Hunters. I wish they had spent more time on Kurnoth and what it looks like to worship two gods. Because the next closest thing we have to like a dual worship is like Gork and Mork, but even then, Gork and Mork just merge into Gorkamorka and everyone's happy, right? No matter how utterly devoted you are to one or the other, the second they merge, you're all on the same team. I guess a possible next one would be Teclis and Tyrion, but we have absolutely no information about how that's going to work as far as the God of Light, so that might be way off, so I'm going to put that off to the side. So all of this combined made me want to know so much more about Kurnoth, about his nature, his survival from chaos, how he as a deity interacts with other gods, but also his servants in the realms, and the rituals that honor him. I want to know how he relates to Alariel, because really all we have, if you put it all together, is like a paragraph of information. All that said, the idea of sort of this polytheistic army or unit is awesome to me, and what I really wish is that they had dove more into that. Because even though Kurnoth Hunters talk about also worshipping Kurnoth, that duality is somewhat undermined because darn near every sentence is about how they're utterly devoted to Alariel. Like, you read their section and you walk away with the idea, okay, they also worship Kurnoth, but none of that is actually shown. None of that is like, and they followed his commands, or they followed his words. It's always Alariel. So it's like, well, what is Kurnoth? How does that devotion of Kurnoth mean anything if it's kind of undermined by, it's really just all about Alariel? And so what I kind of wish is that GW would lean into that divide of like, I want to see friction from that. I want to see them, not even friction, just incorporate different aspects of warfare from each other, kind of play off them both. Because right now, functionally, if you look at the book, they kind of worship Kurnoth in words only and just do whatever Alariel wants. She might as well be their sole deity. So all in all, these are really fascinating units individually. They complement the other Sylvaneth in great ways, whether bringing the iron will of the Everqueen across the realms, or join the efforts of the God of the Hunt. These units add so much to an already rich backstory, and frankly it adds a lot to the model diversity and is absolutely stunning. But this video is of course the start of a discussion, and I want to hear your thoughts on the polytheism here, the worshipping multiple gods, and what you would like to see if Games Workshop leans into Kurnoth specifically as an individual deity and develop him more. Tell me all your thoughts. I look forward to reading them. Hope you enjoyed this video and look forward to seeing you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.